This is Your Voice. I'm Julia Lokendy. Today, Senate Finance Chairman John DeFrancisco is going to give us up-to-the-minute details on the budget negotiations. How are you, Senator?
I'm doing well, thank you.
You know, it is going to heat up here the next couple of months. We had the first week of budget hearings. I just want to take a look very quickly. The hearings this week include today, January 30th, Public Protection, January 31st, Economic Development, February 1st, Higher Education. So as Finance Chairman, you listen to all of the testimony, right?
Correct. And we had 4 hearings last week, 3 this week, and they keep going on. There's a total of 13 hearings. And if you can see from the discussions or the topics, they're not short hearings. They're hearings about issues that people are very concerned about. And they're very informative, and we ask questions and hopefully get answers.
Right, and I know, I was thinking about what you said last week when I was saying anyone can watch these proceedings on channel 131, and you said, well, I just want to warn everyone that they take hours and hours and hours. So we have a few clips that summarize like the best moments or some of the best moments of this week. So let's first start with, there was education, local government, workforce, and transportation. And I want to start with transportation because it seems like the governor has really put a lot of faith in the Department of Transportation in terms of rebuilding the infrastructure and creating jobs. So Joan McDonald, the DOT commissioner, she really seemed to not be prepared. She lacked a lot of details. And you jumped in to call her out on it. And I want to take a look at that right now.
Okay. In order to make our informed judgment, would you agree that we need some facts and some information about the areas that you're in charge of in the Transportation Department?
I believe that's a fair assessment.
Now tell me how we can do that function when your answer has almost been uniformly to all questions. We're studying it. We don't know. When we get the information, we don't know when we'll have the information. When we get the information, we'll tell you about it. But right now, I can't really explain it. Now, how are we supposed to take that testimony? And that's from both sides of the aisle, both houses. How are we supposed to use that to make an informed decision on this budget?
Well, this is the start of the dialogue from the way I look at it.
Okay. So you want to?
Well, you know, it's not that she wasn't prepared. I think she was prepared to be vague, and that's part of the purpose of the hearings. We want information. It's one thing to say the governor is doing a wonderful job, which he is. It's another thing to say, Governor, we're going to trust you that when you close regional offices of the Department of Transportation, you'll do the right thing without us having any input or not. It's another thing to say, okay, there's millions and billions of dollars that ultimately will go to transportation, and we should not know where those projects are going to be and whether they're the right projects under the circumstances. So, you know, I think what I got out of her at the end of that dialogue, there was a couple more questions, was that I said, look, well, we have this information before we have to vote on this budget. And ultimately she said yes, which hopefully will be the case so that we can do an intelligent review and make intelligent decisions.
Right, because there's a lot on the line there with the long-term capital plan, the Tappan Zee Bridge, numerous consolidation
Absolutely,
efforts too.
absolutely.
You have been actively involved in the hearing process for years, and during the education hearing last week, you told the history of increasing aid time and time again to the point of right now teachers are losing their jobs. Let's take a look at that.
What I'm getting at is I remember long ago when I first got here, when the city school district would come in about 3 superintendents ago, and back then there was a lot of increases in aid to education. Today it dwarfs in comparison. And the next year it would always be, well, we need 20 million more, or we got a $40 million gap. And it seems to me that at some point, I hope everyone acknowledges that if the personnel costs are 85% of the budget and you're only offsetting a 1% salary increase, people are getting laid off, losing jobs. There might be some rationality in what the contracts are going to be, or else the alternative is laying people off. Do you think that's a good, logical explanation?
It's very real. As a matter of fact, last year we had that conversation with our union before we terminated 360 active teachers.
See, and I just, you know, and I think, you know, it's just that we've got to be real in a tough time, and I just want to make sure that point was made.
Okay. I understand that a lot of the people that wrote into you over the week have talked about the teacher evaluation system.
Not only that, but other education issues. The topic of the day last week was to comment on was teacher evaluations, but in the course of that there was comments about, we're not providing enough money for teachers and so forth. Well, the fact of the matter is, over the last several years, the monies that went to the schools far, far exceeded the rate of inflation. But there were very generous salary increases that were given over the years, and that's what I was talking to this superintendent about. I was saying, the alternative, if there's no money, is to lay off teachers. Doesn't it make more sense to make sure the salaries are reasonable in relation to the monies that are available? And he made the comment, which was kind of interesting. He says, we talked about that to the teachers.
Right.
We talked about that to the union. What happens? Rather than pare back salary increases, the teachers union chose instead to get rid of 400 teachers. Now, and I say chose instead because there was a true alternative. And it seems to me that everybody is having difficulty in these times. There's not unlimited amount of money, and we've got to be real, as I said to that speaker. One of the people that wrote in last week talked about when is all the money, more money going to be given from the lottery to education? I've been in the Senate 20 years. I've heard that question for 20 years. Hopefully this explanation will finally get to everybody. And that is every dollar, the net dollars after the advertising costs and so forth, and after the administrative costs, go into education, every single lottery dollar. The problem is that the monies that we give to education far exceed the amount that the lottery draws in. So there's always more money besides the lottery money that goes into education. So we put it all in, and hopefully people will understand that. But as far as the evaluations, uniformly there was the general theory from all of the people who wrote that the education, the evaluation system is a good thing. What people were mostly concerned about, for example, Wayne wrote in and he said basically that the teachers are not opposed to evaluations, and it seems like that's the dialogue that they are, and I know that. They just want it to be fair. And as I was going around the community this weekend, others were saying to me, it's unfair to use test scores. And then when I explained, because some students are lower achieving than others, and some teachers will look like they're worse because the test testing so low. The fact of the matter is 40% of the evaluation is testing, which it looks like that's approximately where it's going to be. But you don't test this class against this class. You test the teacher against the performance from the prior year for the same class. So you're looking at improvement, not comparing unreasonably strong classes to lower classes. So people want it to be fair, teachers want it to be fair, and I think most agree that everybody should be held accountable.
Yeah. Also during the education hearing, when you were questioning a representative from NYSET about the pension proposal, his complaint was that higher income pensioners should not have to make a greater contribution. But you catch him because he really contradicts himself on his position of the millionaire's tax. Let's take a look at that right now.
One pension issue. On page 5, you indicate that you're against this hybrid defined benefit plan under Tier 6 with its sliding scale of employee contributions that punishes you for making a higher salary. What's wrong with that?
Well, the percentage goes up as you make more money.
What's wrong with that?
What is wrong with paying more? Well, you're punishing people for getting an increase in pay.
What if you make more money and you're taxed more? Is that punishing people for making more money?
Is that
Are you representing the 1% or the 99%?
Oh, I am always representing the 99%.
Okay.
And you too, if you're part of the 1%.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
You got to have some fun in these hearings because, it's a very serious issue that's being debated. And in fact, this Wednesday, I'll be debating with one of the opponents, is Elliot Spitzer, as to whether you should increase the taxes on the wealthy. And the same group, NYSET, has always said that we should have the millionaire's tax, which at one period of time was actually on people making over $200,000. So and this group was very strong in favor of that. And I got a kick out of the fact that they don't think that pensioners should put more money into the pension because they're making more money because it's punishing them. So I had to get into that dialogue, and because I believe that what he's saying is really true, whether it's taxes or whether it's pensions. You've got to incent people to try to do better, to try to make more money, to try to be more productive. Small businesses to provide more jobs because they're successful. So it's a point I wanted to make, and he gave me the golden opportunity.
Right. As you are finding out more information on the governor's proposal for this new pension, Tier 6 pension plan, you're trying to get more details about how the plan compares to the pension plan that we use right now. So at the workforce hearing, you asked Budget Director Robert Magnan this. Let's take a look.
The 10 to 12 years vesting is if you opt into the pension plan, correct, as opposed to the defined contribution plan.
Correct.
Do you have any statistics as to the number of employees that come into the system and don't stay 10 years, never vest, walk away with nada?
I don't have it right in front of me, but I can provide that information. We do have, depending again on the function, I think the turnover rates can be very different. For example, just as an example.
Well, I don't need an example because we're running out of time, but
Okay.
quite simply, I think that it would be very important to know that 30–40% of the people may or may not last the 10 years. They walk away with zero, which is not as good as option as the defined contribution option had this been in place. I just, because it's an important aspect if you're trying to sell something, to know whether or not there's that benefit.
So how much could the state save if there was a Tier 6?
Well, in the billions of dollars. The reason why it's somewhat difficult to sell, especially to unions, number one, it's a less beneficial plan than the current employees are receiving. And secondly, it's over years because it's only applying to new employees. So it doesn't hurt the old employees, but to get the money over years it's going to take in order to realize those billions. But we have to think long term, and the reason we're in the trouble we're in now, we didn't think long term. And besides, the pension plan, though it's less for new employees than current state workers get, it's very favorable compared to what private industry employees get. And that, I think, was what the debate is all about.
All right. Before we go, I want to jump ahead and show our viewers what's in store for next week. February 6th, taxes. February 7th, environmental conservation. February 8th, health and Medicaid. And of course, the hearing schedule is on your website, DeFrancisco.nysenate.gov. And do you want to ask your viewers to continue to write in?
Oh, absolutely. I think, you've seen some of the clips of some of the debates on the floor, or at least the questions that were being asked. I think it would be nice if you think other questions should be asked. You know what the topics are going to be in the future. If there's something you want me to ask the commissioners or the people that are testifying, I'll be more than happy to ask it. So hopefully we can get some good questions.
Great. Thanks so much for being with us, Senator.
Thank you.
For any additional information, you can log on to the Senator's website, DeFrancisco.nysenate.gov.